And I'm just going to, again, thank everybody for being on. And for those that will be joining, I'll be letting them in. But, you know, a couple of things just to do some check-ins. Frequency every other week. Is that still going to work? Right. And I know that there's at least two folks, both Vinny and Joe, have a hard stop at 8:30. So I won't be taking up much more time. And, you know, the time of, you know, again, the time of day, Thursday morning. So I think if we can just continue to just do that, that will be helpful again as we move forward. And there was some discussions before we started, and it was how did Monday, the forum, how did that go? I gave a bit of a my 2 cents, but Cindy was there along with John Fay. And I do have the sign-in sheet. You know, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 business owners who were there. Well, that may not seem a lot, but that again, 6 actually were there. You know, and I think that's where we're trying to get to, expand the base of the folks and do that. So Cindy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, here's what we had going against us is it rained, and it hadn't rained in like weeks, right? So it happened to rain that day. So, you know, that always unfortunately does affect. But if I could just add one add in, after the meeting was done, I was talking to the woman from Worcester. I forgot her name. But one of the things Evelyn, thank you. You know, one of the things that I said, what was your biggest struggle of like getting buy-in, or, you know, the biggest hurdle you had to cross? And her thing was being really clear and upfront about the cost of things, right? So once we decide what we want to do, like what count the cost, right? And be upfront with the other business owners about it, because managing expectations is a huge part of this, right? So I just wanted to add that in.
Oh, that's great. I will put in the chat and share with others. There is a link to the video that we did by way of Zoom. It's not as clear as I would have liked it to be, but you can get the gist of their presentations. I really did think that was great. So now that it's 8:03, I'm tying up time, but Ann, do you want to maybe jump in and just maybe get us to a point where what our next steps will be?
Well, we thought today would be a useful time to, is John on the call? He's not on the call. Oh, yeah. To talk about, just to make sure that everyone has captured the work that's been done thus far with the various property owners and focus groups and surveys that we've conducted through July. And so I put together and John, can you pull these up for me, or can we share these?
Actually not.
Okay. The stuff I sent you yesterday.
I had actually sent that back as well with my edits.
Oh, you did? Okay, let me find that. You sent that back as an email?
Yeah, but it's got notes all over it, Ian.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gone after I sent that to you, so
okay, hang on a second. I'm in the office. Let me pull it up. I think I have an unedited.
Well, the things that we had discussed reviewing today are, I put together a few slides around the PowerPoint presentations and what I thought were takeaways, the consensus of what people expressed as things that were working, things that were challenges, what the biggest takeaways were.
I'm sorry, Mary, would you allow me to share?
Oh, sorry, Rob, I meant to do that. And while doing that as well, you know, Chris Cooney and Cindy were in the, and Ted Carmen were also, just to maybe to get their input, because they also attended the forum too.
So what I'd like to do is to give you a quick glance at These focus group findings have John and talk about the survey results so far and what people are commenting on, and also the information that came out of the forum, in addition to your comments. So I'll start with the focus group piece, or can you advance that? I guess, how do we advance that? Okay, so just talking about with the nonprofits, we had 2 focus groups thus far, the nonprofits and the property owners and businesses. We'd like to do a couple more, and we are in the process of getting those scheduled. So talking to the nonprofits, some of the observations that they made, and I thought this was important to note, is that, you know, they have all made major investments in facilities that are located in the downtown, and these are significant. Benny, I think you commented in particular that data shows that people are coming back for services, that memberships or clients are returning post-COVID, not quite to the levels as pre-COVID, but they are definitely coming back. That there's a strong match to market in terms of the clients they serve. There's significant employment with these nonprofits in the downtown. People seem to sometimes forget that there are hundreds or thousands of employees that come to the downtown every day, working in the nonprofits and going to the community college and so forth, and that the community college is going to be an important asset and a welcome addition to the downtown environment. Next slide. So okay, so I think these have these gotten, did you change these around?
No, this is the order you gave it to.
Okay, let me just pull up my slides there.
This is the unedited version that we have.
I think just for the sake of time, maybe we
All
can
right.
continue to go forward, and we can send the slides, the revised one after this meeting.
Okay, so we talked about that the architecture. These are these asked people what do they find as a positive thing, and a positive aspects of the downtown. This is coming from the nonprofits. I actually thought this was the property owners. I'm sorry about
The property
not
owners
looking at your
are
final
next.
version. Okay, so that there's a very positive political environment. They're giving it a valiant try. There is improved cleanliness in the downtown that didn't exist before, although it could be better. There's a new brewery. There are the community college is a great addition, and there's a lot of pride in the city of Brockton and pride in the downtown. The concerns are that there's a real and perceived safety issue, particularly after dark, both for clients and staff and students who are coming to the downtown, and that needs to be addressed. And some of that is real, and some of that is a perception that needs to be overcome. The lack of restaurants and entertainment options are problematic in terms of just providing things for people to do. There's a need to improve the physical appearance of the downtown, provide more reasons to come, more shopping, more residential housing, more green space, and more gathering spaces are some of the issues. The key recommendations that the nonprofits had to make were perhaps the addition of ambassadors or increased walking patrols, more activations, lighting, design, generally an overall strategy to communicate and to dispel myths about the downtown, but also to communicate, you know, what's happening in a more positive, focused way. Increased food and shopping options, talked about a number of short-term and longer-term ideas that could be explored downtown to help, again, create more reasons for people to come, promote a business-friendly environment, improve the streetscape, gathering places, gateways, like so forth, actively program the downtown, cleaning and beautification, and the flow of traffic. Next slide. So property owners, there are some of the observations that people made were that there are new and legacy property owners who are here that provided both opportunities and challenges, but there were new people making investments in the downtown area, which is important. The residential developers that are adding housing is a significant thing happening that will provide more 24/7 layer of activity in the downtown. The proximity to Boston and by commuter rail, and just the general proximity to Boston is a plus. The need to make the downtown more comfortable to women as it attracts residents and commercial tenants. And there will be a benefit to being more organized and strategic for advocacy. And that's something that they felt an organization like this might be able to do. And that there are significant investments being made in the downtown. Strengths, political leadership is strong. The city is implementing a plan. Public and private investment is happening. Proximity to Boston, the street grid pattern is a plus, and commuter rail. Concerned safely, there's a significant women workforce in the downtown. It's uncomfortable walking around because of some issues of panhandling or homeless or other sorts of challenges. It feels dark. People getting to who are commuting feel uncomfortable walking to train or the commuter rail stations. There are panhandlers and unhoused. There's lack of visible police presence. Need to improve the streetscape, negative perceptions. There's no synergy or energy to create a destination. They're just nodes of activity. So the need to improve walkability, some things like snow removal, wayfinding, improved streetscapes, and just more reasons for people to come. So you see, these kind of comments are consistent and for the most part in both focus groups that we ran. And the key perceptions, we had a lot of conversations about the city's responsibility to increase a visible police presence in the downtown through walking patrols. But there was also an acknowledgement that we needed to enhance sort of supplemental efforts. And some ideas were ambassadors and enhanced lighting or strategic lighting programs, activations and programming, public relations to really talk about what's real and what's perception, and other kinds of efforts to maybe engage some of the folks who are unhoused or might be incorporated into a workforce effort to address to some of the other kinds of programming that might be happening here. We talked about enhancing programming, basically talking about more reasons, providing more reasons for people to come through art. We talked about Brockton Arts and some of the other existing assets you have in the downtown, creating a mechanism to have a collective voice and to provide leadership for these efforts, creating more market rate housing, starting with small wins, talking about doing small, visible, active things that could happen right away, and then improving our marketing and PR. I think there's one more slide. And cleanliness, adding more big belly trash cans, doing trash pickup, adding planters, baskets, all of these things being done to create a destination in the downtown, create more daytime amenities that are walkable for people who work here, more food options from hot dog stands to full dining, and support and collaborate the brewery with other businesses and organizations. Those are some of the key recommendations that came out of the property owner and business focus group. So those are our takeaways. I think we touched on some of those. There's consistency between the two around the issues, and I think some of the approaches we might take, but I wanted to cover those. And then I asked John if you could pull up both the findings of the survey, because I think they align with some of these things, as well as what people said at the forum. Any for Denny or at the group?
No, I think you did a
that
good representation.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary.
Okay. John, can we quickly pull up those other things?
And just
Thank
to
you.
time
Pulling
check,
them
it's
up right now.
8:16. Just, we have another, just, we'll be losing Vinny and Joe. And just while that's being pulled up, Joe, did you want to weigh in anything? I didn't mean to not give you the opportunity in the beginning to say anything.
Oh, I'm all set, thank you.
Great, thank you.
So if you give me the ability to share, I will.
Sorry, John, you had two Johns on, so
No worries, I'm logging the other one off.
I'll give it to you both.
Everyone see now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. These are, we got 37 responses from our survey. And we are still pretty consistently at that 37. Unfortunately, it isn't budging much. But the majority of our respondents are business owners, somewhere around 30%, but we do have a quarter of the respondents being property owners. We do have many users, CEOs in business and property owners. So I split the responses into all respondents and then the property owners themselves to see if we can notice any patterns between the general public, including the owners, and then the property owners themselves would like. And so all of these are averages because the questions were from 1 to 5, rating their personal view of the importance of each of these categories, and then the willingness to fund those same categories. Different ways just to see if there were any kind of inconsistencies with what was seen as being needed and what was seen as being as people were willing to fund. So the property owners, they are a little less likely to, in general, to view most of these things as important, but more willing to fund these solutions to them, which I found pretty interesting. It looks like downtown management is the most popular response from property owners. And out of a 5, that scores a 4.45 in response, in willingness to fund those activities. Followed closely by capital improvements, which makes sense. And then it's a pretty even split between economic development activities, arts and culture, and pedestrian improvements. So at the end of the surveys, there were a bunch of suggestions from respondents that may or may not have been on the survey. So anything that safety, at 1 hour free parking as usual always comes up. A lot of these were, the typical trash cans, cleaning, pickup, beautification, programming, Sycamore Grove, if someone's excited to have that going. And again, safety. Thought this one was interesting. Educational focused events, financial education, other skills that constituents could use. And which is very common. Funding for programming downtown, such as Farmers Market and Prova. Adopt a cop for one day. I'm not sure if that meant that a business would adopt a cop. That was a suggestion. And then making the DBA like kind of a hub for communicating to all the businesses and residents downtown about anything that may be coming up or down the pike. So again, this is just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on the boundaries of the bid and that the boundaries make sense. I did call out a few buildings just so we could orient ourselves if someone was unfamiliar with where the boundary actually is. So in the southwest, we're around Rockland Trust is our southwest corner. The George Knight Press Making Company is our southeast corner. Verizon is the northeast corner, and Vicente is the northwest corner. Anyone have any issues with where these boundaries are falling? Anything that should be included or excluded from these?
John, those boundaries are the same ones that we had voted on, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So at least it's nothing new. It's just I think this is a clearer boundary map that from the last one, but Chris Cooney has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I'm just looking at that George Knight inclusion because it's manufacturing and largely not directly associated with downtown. I could see, I don't know if we've had any input from him or feedback from him, but I could see that as a potential problem on his part, but we'll see. Has he completed a survey or?
Nope, he has not. I ran into him at the Italian Kitchen maybe about 3 weeks ago, and we're supposed to be sitting down in July.
Okay.
I would expect that, like Mary, that would be a good conversation to have to see whether or not that property, that boundary might include or exclude
Mhm.
him. But as we move forward, we'll want to make sure that we're comfortable that these are the boundaries that we all agree make sense for this district. So when we
Right.
put together our materials and our petition, that once we commit to that, that's the boundary that we'll be working with.
Any other questions for John about the boundaries and or the survey? Again, would really like to see a much more robust, and I do think it's important to keep it open and to encourage for those that may not have filled it out. I think everybody who I see on here has filled it out already, so thank you. Share it with your residents for those who are either, Cindy, I know you and we chatted, even to get folks who are at Brockton Beer or Prova. So my intention is to spend some time at both those and keep a laptop going and have people just take the survey, because it will be capturing what they have to say as much as while getting the input from the property owners and business owners is critical. It's all important, but I really was hoping to have our survey numbers be in about 100.
I think too, if you have employees, it's good to hear from employees as well. And we have lots of employees in downtown Brockton. And John, do you want to pull up just the forum one, too? Or
Oh,
is that
Ted
next on
Carmen,
your-
Ted Carmen has a question. If you unmute yourself, Ted.
Ted, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Okay, thank you. At the bottom, you've got a couple of residential areas excluded. It seems like it would make sense to include them because we certainly don't want to have problems there, not be subject to the benefits of the downtown district. I mean, it would be simple to just bring the line over so that it includes those residential areas, and that way an ambassador, for instance, if there was an issue on those streets, wouldn't have any hesitation about going down them.
Are you talking about right there?
Does Rob or John want to add in on that? Because
The
I know-
lower left and the lower right, there are two places where there's just a big indentation, and it seems like having a more regular boundary might make sense.
Let's, in the small group, discuss that.
Okay. Great. And we have about 5 minutes left before we lose. I'm just doing a time check. So before we lose, any other items, John, did you want to present?
I think Ann wanted me to pull up.
Just wanted you to pull up the what came out of the forum.
I
There's
am
one slide.
seeing as what I named it. Are you talking about the spreadsheet that I had made?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I didn't put it in the slideshow, but I am looking for it currently. I apologize.
While John's looking for that, I think before we lose people, are two things that we wanted to do two more focus groups, one around the restaurant community and also another with the brown and black business owners that we're working on trying to settle in here soon. And then we will, I think at one of our upcoming meetings, we will, John and I will begin to, we're going to start to talk about putting together some of these recommendations and into a more readable form, and also starting to talk about some budget numbers that we'll be able to present to you, over the next few weeks. So this is just from the focus groups.
Yes, this is a representation of the dot posters and then the fill in the blank posters. So we see that lighting is definitely the most popular dot that people wanted, and then followed, tied with better outdoor places to gather and seating. More outdoor dining and dining in general are very close behind. And then arts and culture seems to be following up. So those are the most popular things that people would like to see downtown. And then the other, we don't have a name for the other, what the other was. And then the fill in the blanks, people would like to see some a county fair, an arts festival, some plays somewhere outdoors, a jazz performance, and then some local talent shows and other kinds of shows.
Okay.
Like all want to be outdoors.
So, and again, this was from those that attended the forum, and
Correct.
just wanted to share, David Texera, who who's not only counselor at large, but is also the owner of the Mattress Factory, Joe Angelo, Fred Fontaine, property owner, Vronsky Mather, property owner, Phil Cohen, property owner, Bill Hogan, not a property owner, but a supporter of downtown, I guess I would say that. Tomei Andre from Capo Vegan, and then Cindy Benderas, the neighbor work. So, I mean, again, those that were on Zoom were not able to participate in the dots, but it did provide, just so there's a variance, if you will, of how these dots were filled. I can see the art festivals and things like that from, oh, and Ted Carmen, sorry, Ted, you were there as well. So it was clear from this, as well as from the business forum and the nonprofit, there certainly is an engaged group of employers, property owners, business owners who want to see this movement and moving forward. And I guess that's the best way I would describe that.
Definitely. And if I could say anything, that I just, from poring over all this data, I would say the way that Ann had mentioned, clean and green is the way that most of these initiatives start. That's definitely, reflected in the data. That is what people want, clean and green.
So in the chat, I put in the YouTube video. That was the one from the recording from the Zoom that we did. But when Brockton Community Access has their recording, which will probably be a lot clearer than what I have, I will share that with you as well. I think the most important piece were the presentations provided by Springfield and Worcester. And again, just thank you to Ann for setting that up. That was very valuable because it was property owner and experience we're talking about. And I think the other activity is that, the business owners talking to each other, property owners talking to each other. So there was a lot that is that needs to be done. So I know
could we take down the presentation so we can see each other? Yeah.
We're going to be losing Vinny as well. And we lost Joe because he had to go. But Cindy?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I love, Mary, that you were talking about, the guy from the Italian kitchen, that you're going to meet with him coming up. And I just think that's so important to have that one-on-one. And I was wondering, maybe this has already been shared, but do we have a list of the business owners that have responded? And maybe I mean, I was at the dry cleaners the other day across the street at Legion. And so I was wondering, oh, I wonder if he did the survey and, you know, and
So-
so I talked to him about the downtown and I was kind of sharing visions and, you know, spreading hope.
So
And he-
that's Steve Lianis. So Steve
Oh.
gets invited to these meetings and he's on vacation this week. So I know that that's why he's not here. But it is those individuals. And that's where I think, you know, Joe and John Marion, as the co-chairs, we're going to be reaching out as,
Okay,
but I think doing what you're doing is exactly what's needed and getting
yeah,
those ambassadors really to help
that was
out.
going to be my suggestion, Mary. Like let's have an intentional focus to split up the list and just be
Yep.
ambassadors. You know, I think we're all here because we see the importance of this
Yep.
project, and so let's spread the love.
So,
You know, I just a suggestion. I think that it would be, it's really important to do exactly that. And if this list, if we have a list of property owners and businesses, so certainly the businesses are important, but ultimately the property owners are going to be important. I think that we have that one pager, so that as you're going out and talking to people, just giving people some general information and show them how they might get involved would be helpful. And as we get later on in this process, we will have developed a cell piece that says, here's what we're going to do. Here are the boundaries. Here's what it's the budget. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's what we're going to do. So that you're all, and here are frequently asked questions that I'm sure you're all going to get, that we will have this, I call it a cell piece for lack of a better word, but it's essentially a summary of here's what we can accomplish working together with this bid. That's going to be important for you to be able to use to disseminate information and to build support. So this is kind of a process that we're going through. We're trying to get input into what are the common themes, what are the priorities, so that we can then put some real numbers together and then really determine what kind of a budget you need, what other resources we can bring to the table, and how are we going to approach this? What can the city do? What's going to fall outside of that? And that comes together. So we're fairly early in this process, but I think what we're beginning to see are some very strong common threads that are coming through here that's going to frame what this program is going to look like. And then internally you will discuss, yep, this sounds good. These are the boundaries. Let's put some real numbers to this process so that we are being clear, because I think that the worst thing we can do is to go out and promise the world and not have the resources to do it.
Exactly.
So aligning those things are the work that we're into right now.
I wanted to piggyback something Cindy said earlier. I thought it was really important about kind of getting to numbers sooner rather than later and full transparency in that respect. Cindy, I agree. I just think that's critically important. You know, for example, personally speaking, I don't know if I'm talking about $1 or $10,000. You know what I mean? And I think everyone else is in the same boat where, you know, no one on this meeting or anywhere else has any idea of what type of monetary, I guess, investment, you know, we're talking about. So I just wanted to piggyback what Cindy said. I think that, you know, we can discuss all the stuff we want to do. And like you said, this is a process we're early on and, you know, budgets need to be formed and whatnot. But I think getting to numbers early on is important. Because if we tell Ted Carmen that he has to pay $30,000 a year, he might just scream and drop out. And that's okay. That's good to know. You know what I mean?
29.
Now rather than later. What's that, Rob?
29,000.
29.5, something, whatever it happens to be. You know what I
Ted's got
mean?
money.
But again, I thought Cindy brought up a good point in that you know, I think we need to you know, get to numbers sooner rather than later so that, you know, people can see where they're at.
John and I have discussed that, and we're going to bring a proposal to the small group next week.
So I totally agree with you. It's important to get to some examples of numbers, and John and I have shared, you know, how we've approached presenting that information in other places, and I think it's very helpful because essentially but again, I think that numbers have to be based in some reality. So if you're talking about wanting to provide ambassadors, if that seems to be a very important thing to you, we have a pretty clear idea of how much that costs. So, you know, having a realistic number in that discussion is important. So we're working towards that. I think we've identified some of the things that are that seem to be rising to the surface as priorities. Not that they're any huge surprise, but I think it's good to hear from people to say, yes, this is what we think is important. And I think that is.
No, I completely agree. I was just, I think that no,
So-
discussion should happen sooner rather than later.
That's so when I look at our next steps, I see I'm recommending that, and we've John and Rob and I and a smaller group have talked about this a bit, is that I'd like to finish up. I think there are two important focus groups we really still need to do, and we need to do those. It's not linear. We're going to do those and still work on these other things. But I think that we're at a point where we can start to identify these major areas of work that people seem to be supportive of, both from the information we have to date, and look at the budget, look at the property owners we have in this and the values, and make some assumptions. And Rob and John have done a little bit of that to see what is that number. And then the other thing to layer in here is, what can the city do? How does that factor into this budget, and how, and ultimately that, and how we make this budget whole. So that's the next steps. I think over the next several weeks to a month or half or so, we will have assembled that information in a way that we can really and that we can really tell the story. And this is what it might cost. This is what we can deliver. This is what I think that this will mean for every property owner. And if you back it back, for example, in another community we worked in, as we worked on trying to figure out what that fee structure looks like, it really worked out that for most property owners, the commitment was less than $100 a month to do all the stuff they wanted to do. So it made it a lot more real, but also digestible. And if that number, and we would not go forward with a recommendation of what that number should look like until internally this smaller group has had an opportunity to kick the tires on, do these fee structure ideas work? So that's really your job, for us to suggest, here's what it might look like with a realistic budget. Here are some other resources that can come to the table, and suggest a couple of different fee structures that you need to say, this could work or this couldn't work. And some of that is going out and having conversations with some of these property owners, large and small, to see whether or not that fee structure is viable.
Right.
So that's the work that needs to happen over the next several weeks.
I think that falls right into the comment that I was going to make, is having some sort of framework, like in this fee structure, this is what we could accomplish. The next tier would be this. So if we're talking about cleanliness and lighting, like flowers, to create continuity in the downtown with some uplighting, that might be a good bang, a quick bang for the buck, like small price, right? What can we do that could generate the the buy-in, right? And then work from there. But if we are willing, or the property owners are willing to spend a little more, this is what we could do, and kind of have it presented like that, and just
We can do that.
get the pulse,
Yeah, I think that's how we would do it. But I think that the important thing is, here's our vision. We want a clean, safe, welcoming place. And people have said to you, we need more activation. We need more. These are the things that, and so clean, safe typically is not just police presence.
No.
Safe is activation, it's lighting, it may be or may not be ambassadors, whether you can afford it. It's enhanced police walking patrols. It's kind of a package of things that tends to impact how people perceive or feel, or the reality of safety. So, and typically those things are not just one thing. There are a variety of approaches to creating that feel, that a place feels clean and safe. And then there are functional things like, we need trash containers, there are things like that, but there are also things that are more, are really a compilation of things that make an impact.
I would venture to say that if there's any property owner, business owner that would hear this conversation happening today, that they would be signing up, because it's exactly right. They need to make some time and put in effort and commitment to this. And sometimes it's that big toe of like, not the unknown of what it means. Does it mean that I've got to spend a meeting every 2 weeks on a Zoom meeting? Or does it mean that I've got to organize a cleanup around my building? But the conversation is a conversation that I would say hasn't really happened in a long time. Before COVID, John, I know, was very much interested in terms of, John Mary in particular, in terms of the presence and the perception of downtown, and, the fact that there were unhoused folks that were causing people to roll their windows up and lock their doors and things of that, right? And so that perception is critical. But this conversation that's actually happening today, I would think that most property owners, business owners, employees would be glad to hear that conversation is happening, and not in a vacuum, but in a way that really should be happening on a daily basis. So anyway, I've been sending some little notes for those that said they would like to be an ambassador and to pick off and start meeting with folks. The status, just so you know, so Harbor One has committed $10,000. We filled out the application and we're just in the waiting period. So I'm not hiring anybody until the money comes in. And I don't mean to be disrespectful about it, but the DBA really, well, we do have some funds in our account, but the DBA, until those funds are coming, it will be restricted. And so that should be happening soon. And Kevin, I already have working with, gosh, I have her name in the top of my head. Anyway, working with the foundation and getting the funds available to us. So as soon as that happens, I'll let everybody know. But I think the focus will be exactly what, again, Cindy's talking about, being an ambassador, but then helping the individual property owners know what that dollar amount could be with this. And then the perspective of, if this happens, this is the other items that can be done. But don't forget as well, those were the conversations we've started off with months ago, was that while the bid is a revenue source, it's not the only revenue source. And there's grant funds and other opportunities, the hotel motel. And if we're going to be bringing online more hotels, and I don't know if that's the truth or not, but ideally that there are funds to help promote not just the downtown, but help promote the city of Brockton as a whole.
So I think if I encourage you, if you are going to go out and have those conversations, use the one pager that we have,
of course,
so that you're all talking off the same sheet of music, so that we're not the scary thing, because if somebody asks you, or if somebody asks you a question, give them my phone number or my email address.
I think
and
here's
you
the
don't
thing,
feel
Ann.
comfortable answering.
I
please
think here's
send
the
them to
thing.
me.
I think there's enough of us that have been on these meetings for way too long to be going off script on anything else. So I don't mean to be, but it's true, right? I think we all probably can recite almost verbatim the discussions. We know that nonprofit groups have some concerns. We know, those are going to be, and obviously, we'll document about who we're going to and have that be captured. And I think having the demonstration that John did in the survey, and encouraging that the most productive way is to have them take the survey, because that is also just another way of capturing in a very global sense of the needs. But yep.
And thanks for the reminder about just trying to get maybe employees, and so we'll definitely I'll definitely work on that within my realm of influence here. Downtown in the bank.
Yep.
We could put a thing in the bank, in the
Kevin?
Harbor One Bank downtown.
I think I mentioned this at one of the last meetings, but I heard this really interesting speaker talk about public safety, and they specifically talked about what is safe enough. And it really struck us all, because people said, if you have, and also the she economy, that women comprise a big section of the economy in the workforce, and making decisions about where people are shopping, or making decisions about where people their families go for recreation or for dinner or things like that. And if your space is not comfortable for a woman in that space, then that's a problem. And you need to be thinking about, how does your space feel to this segment of the population? And I think that's really important, because what struck me in both the conversation with the and is the perception of safety within their women workforce and their women clientele and their women who were using their establishments. So that is something that we need to be mindful of and be thinking about strategies around that. Rob, do we want to take a minute to look at the MOU elements from the city that we were discussing, or do we want to save that to another?
We're kind of running late on time, and that's going to be a huge conversation. But just to let people know, we have taken a look at all the city services that we currently offer. We've documented that. Then we've pulled together a list of things that the city could offer as part of as its contribution to the bid. It's expanding city services or cooperation. But then there's also, a potential using DIF or marijuana host community funds, impact funds, to help offset, some cash.
Right. So what Rob and I have talked about are things that again, these are the things that we talk about when we talk about the bid fee, and then other pieces that come into the equation when we talk about a budget for this bid. So talking about how the city might participate with some of these in-kind services, but also actually an investment into this project. And then also some of the longer term, larger infrastructure types of ideas that the city may be willing to make as priorities, that may be consistent with what you want to have in your plan, that you would never be able to afford to do on your own. But if the city could apply for infrastructure grants and other resources, it might allow you to accomplish what you want to do in terms of improving the streetscape, making more green spaces, looking at traffic flow, and other kinds of things that might be very important to this plan, but maybe outside of what you might be able to do within your budget. So that's a really important conversation. And thank you, Rob, for being proactive and initiating that conversation with the powers to be in your community. And that's something that we're working on now.
Great. Any other comments? Yeah, I mean, Cindy put in the chat, the takeaway from Springfield presentation, the bid creates other funding opportunities. So I think that's, the idea is to not put additional heavy burden, but yet building the capacity and not rely on volunteers. As we all know, volunteers have its challenges, and ideally that if this is going to support your investments of property owners and the state funding that have been invested in the downtown, then we really need to be able to support that with having that continuity of services and ambassadorship, if you will. So
I think Chris commented that 60% of the Springfield budget is comprised of bid fees and 40% comes from other sources.
That's right.
Yep, he was so clear about the fact that once he had the bid going, he was able to go to Mass Development and these other groups and say, hey, match this fund, or and so that he maximized that contribution from the property owners. And that's something that we can also communicate. It's like, this is not, the whole burden isn't on you. This is a way for us to open up other opportunities for this city. I think that was powerful.
Yeah,
it was.
And that's what many bids are able to do, particularly as they get their feet under them. Then you start here and you kind of continue to move forward.
Yep. We got to start somewhere.
So great conversations. I know there's a couple folks who have been quiet today. I don't know if there's been just any last minute. I know at the I received an email from the ARC, and there's an art demonstration that's going to be at the Enzo Gallery this weekend. So, but those are the kind of things that I think that folks, residents, others would like to know about. I just got the email yesterday and just shared it with a whole bunch of folks that I would really like to, but that's the kind of the, what's going on downtown. Prova is starting to build its fencing and things of that nature, right? People want to know that. Chris?
Mary, thanks. So I just wanted to give an update on the state grants that we received to help small businesses develop websites. And of the 17 applications, we only had about 30 inquiries, and we had 17 applications. We chose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all our Brockton businesses, and 3 are in the bid. Elvira's, Sly's Veggie Cafe, and CompuMath. And then in addition, Power Nutrition was selected, Cape Verdean Association, the Italian Kitchen, and Cape Cod Cafe. So they'll all be receiving updates to their website with 2 consultants who will be working with them hand in hand over the next 4 or 5 months. So
Awesome. That's great.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Updates? I guess that's it. And just to just reemphasize, so again, Rob, John, and Amanda, myself, we meet. For those that did not know, Robert Jenkins is leaving the Brockton Redevelopment Authority. If you did not know that, at the end of the month. Patricia Jackson, who I did invite today but wasn't able to make it, will be coming to these meetings and at least on an interim basis, will be replacing. But the smaller group, we kind of digest what comes in from here and then prepare for when the next time this group meets. So all that data takes time, and just want to really, again, thank John Fay for taking all of that information, all the dots and all the, survey results and making it look like it was simple to do, but not always that simple. But thank you, John. Rob?
Quick off topic, slightly off topic. Does anybody know if table 22 is still open?
I walked by it the other day. I did not see it open.
And Mary, can I jump in for 1
Please.
second?
Yep.
I just wanted to let everyone know I'm, the Brockton Venture Fund that was created by Harbor One, Eastern Bank, Rockland Trust, Northeastern Savings, and Sharon Crescent United. We granted our first $50,000 small business loan to the Brockton Beer Company and was funded on July 1st.
Great.
So we still have $950,000 left in the fund, and hopefully the applicants are, we actually have more applicants. So we're meeting monthly to review those applications. But remember, that is right down to a startup can get that $50,000 loan.
That's great. Thank you very much, Kevin. Those are all right. The website, assisting businesses with websites is critical. The loans, the venture loans, that's critical. But it's also then getting a business community and property owner communities to have a voice as we move forward. So, and I do think that we're all heading in that right direction. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Chris?
yeah, I don't want to take a lot of time, but we had a lot of grant activity between January and June, and I could do a whole segment on this, but we did receive funding for 5 wayfinding signs in downtown Brockton. So we're working with sign design, and I need to obviously get with you, Rob, to figure out, and the mayor, meeting with the mayor, to figure out where these signs could go. They're modeled off of another downtown initiative in the state of Massachusetts that sign design had completed. We also were funded for more information signs. So there are these Brockton information kiosk signs at the Bat Center, at the parking garage, at the chamber office, at the Fuller Craft Museum, at the Historical Society Museum. We
are rehabbing all of those and getting 2 new ones. So we have a site for one, but we're looking to maybe get over at the Rock Stadium, because that was that actually came after the sign initiative was put into place way back when. So I guess I'll be working with the mayor on that, and maybe you, Rob, as well, to get a sign over there. I've got them ordered, I've got them paid for. I just got to figure out where they're going to go. We also rehabbed all the Welcome to Brockton signs. They've all been updated, gold leaf lettering, including the Historical Society sign and the Welcome to Brockton sign there. And we received funding for 2 new ones. I just need to help finding out where they go because I don't have a site yet. And again, I plan on meeting with the mayor.
The DBA might be a good place to go on for some of that suggestion too, Chris. There's some new folks that have joined the DBA, getting some input since it is downtown, right? But that's great. I'm glad, good news about that.
I
Anybody else?
agree, Mary. I think we're gonna run into some regulatory about where signs can go and where they can't go. So that kind of thing.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else? If not, thank you, everybody, for your input, for being on this meeting. That in itself is really helpful, and getting some feedback as we go along the way, and we'll keep moving forward. So the next meeting, it should be on your schedules. If it's easiest for me that you all accept the meeting invite, and then it stays on your calendar. There was a link, but the next meeting is July 21st is what I have for the next date. So, so thank you. And this recording, once it gets downloaded, will be shared with the whole group of folks. As you see from the email list, it's growing. And I think that's, if you see someone on that list, reach out to them and help be an ambassador, because that's really the only way that it's going to happen. It won't be on these shoulders or on the city's shoulders. It really does take some folks. So thank you very much, and have a great week.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mary.
Thank you.